All right, here's that moment of truth. Here's that moment of truth where I wait for everything to wake up. Let's see here. It looks like YouTube is waking up. You guys, there's a law, but I have to see it because I don't have an on-site producer and I got to make sure and blah blah blah. So YouTube, you with us? What are you doing, YouTube? YouTube has Twitter was first. Twitter's always first. YouTube, it looks like YouTube was second. You guys know I like it when Rockfin's second. But Rockfin is third. Rockfin was third today. YouTube was second. And Twitter's always first. So you didn't win, YouTube. You know what I mean. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. It is the second to last Get Your News On with Ron episode of 2021. We'll be taking a break at the end of the year, and then we'll be back in January. And I'll be announcing the official date, or at least the official week that we'll be back. On Thursday. Thursday, I do the headlines episode. So I'll be announcing all this stuff for 2022 then. This is my last interview episode of the week. First of all, thanks to the people who make this show possible, help make this show possible. Our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is a place to find all the content creators and streamers you know and love. They curate a list. They update it twice a day. It's a one-stop shop to find out everything they got going on. And to subscribe to their Discord, go to independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. All right, without further ado, so my guest for the last interview episode of Get Your News On with Ron, I'm so excited to talk to her. She's been on this show before, and I've been on her new podcast, and we've been trying to reconnect. We had a couple issues come up that we weren't able to make it happen. Some tech issues that came up the one time we were scheduled, and we're finally getting back to it. And we're going to go through the year together. She is the author of Left Out, and she's got a new podcast out that we're going to talk about. Please welcome back to the show, Tara Reade. Tara, how are you?
Hi. Oh, thanks for having me.
Of
Happy
course.
New Year almost. What have you
Happy New
spent?
Year almost. Yeah. Happy holiday season. Do you got,
Yep.
well, we'll start it as light as possible. Do you have any fun plans for the season? Anything you want to share?
Well, I just had a bunch of fun doing the podcast on RT that you mentioned. It's called the Politics of Survival. And the interview I did before our holiday break, which we're taking a break until our next show is January 14th. But it was with Maria Butina. So that was really, really insightful
Nice.
and moving. She was just very open and, and you can kind of fill in the gaps about who she is from your perspective.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to check it out. I'm not super familiar, but is this your first like podcast you've ever hosted?
Yeah, it
Cool.
is. And
How?
it's been going really well. I mean, you were on it and I loved having
Yes.
you on it.
Yeah, I had a
We had
blast.
Igor Lopotnik, the director, on it. He did this great documentary called Kazakh. And and who else has been really helpful is the Indie Left News. They've been really supportive, and they always tweet out all of us, which is great. It kind of gives you this place to kind of look for different content, and some you might agree with and some you might not,
Of
but
course.
there you have it.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad it's been going well for you. I enjoyed and I'm not trying to flatter you necessarily. I'm just being honest. Like I really enjoyed doing your show, and I figured you had hosted podcasts before. Like you had your questions, you had it down, and you were very comfortable. So I figured you had had a
Yeah,
bunch of
no, and
podcasts.
I don't have any journalistic training, nor am I interested in that. So I just kind of, as far as questions go, I try to make it. I have like a thing, like a little piece of paper. I might write a couple ideas on topics, but other than that, I just let the conversation flow, as you know, because
Right on.
it
Well,
just sort of did flow, and then it evolves into something really great.
yeah,
Like I
I'm thrilled
remember
to
you
hear
were
it.
talking about the storage containers in the bay, and I was wanted to catch up with you again. And are they still there? Those empty containers?
I don't know if all the empty containers are still in the Wilmington neighborhood, but yeah,
Right,
the ships are still. I mean, I can see the port of LA from my house, and not
right,
in the Sarah Palin can see Russia way. I can actually see it. I have video proof. But but
right.
yeah, it's funny. The Discovery Channel used some of my footage on this
Really?
segment they did about the LA port. Yeah, it's actually they sort of really clipped it a lot. So it was basically me just saying there are shipping containers in places. So it
Great.
wasn't they didn't use a ton of it. I was hoping they would use more to like get the full circumference of what it is I was talking
Yeah.
about. But I mean, what can you do? They got a segment to make. but yeah, my editor Joe sent it to me. I had not seen it.
Mhm.
Um, but my buddy Joe, who helps me out some on the show, he found, I don't know how he found it because I mean, I guess you have to have just regular cable, which I don't have. But
No,
anyway, he found it and he clipped it out and sent it to me.
that's
But
very
yeah,
cool.
so it's still pretty backed up. Like, and I'm basing this just off of what I would see in regular times versus what I've
Mhm,
been seeing recently. And I've been
mhm.
living here. There's a pandemic, and as long as I've been living here, but even still, it's like you wouldn't see the ships like past a certain point, and now they're like way past that, and they're just sitting out there, like they're
Yeah,
just out there, and you're you
mhm.
you're just thinking this is nuts,
And
you
there
know.
is a supply issue. I mean, I just kinda went through it because my car broke down and I had to get, a part for it, and it was the mechanic ordered it. It hasn't arrived. It was supposed to arrive a week and a half ago, and they said it's just due to the delay of things things that we need. So,
Mhm.
there we have it.
Well, and there's a list of things that they're projecting we might be low on. Like there's different things where they're like, we might get low on this, we might get low on this. And
Mhm.
the best thing I can tell people in that regard is, first of all, you and I are both big cat people.
Yes.
Pet food is one of those potential things. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think they know, but
Okay.
try to make
Please don't tell
sure.
my cat because
Yeah, right.
I don't know how valuable I am to them unless I'm providing them with food. So
I'm
if they're
having my indoor
choosing,
point.
it's gonna be kind of like Donner's Pass, you know what I mean? Like, she can go.
Lucy's napping on the couch. I don't want to speak too loud. I don't want to wake her up. And she'll be
Yeah,
like,
her
"Wait, what's
ears like,
going on?" She perks
"Where's
up.
the
She's
wet
like, "What
food?"
did you say? Give me a snack now. I'm
Yeah.
hungry." But yeah, so make sure you're solid there. And
Mhm.
then the other thing, and I talk about this all the time, is, eat local to the absolute best of your ability. If you live in a rural place where you can have a community garden,
Yeah.
have one if you can. That's an amazing thing to do. If you don't live in a place where that's a possibility, I know I don't, go to your farmer's market and
Mhm.
and support them to the best of your ability. It's healthier, it's better for
Yeah.
you, and it's really important, especially as we're facing supply chain issues.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, growing a garden is amazing, and, I'm in the winter garden phase, right now, but pretty soon we'll be able to do some other stuff, and I love it. I mean, like, I don't do an elaborate thing, but I usually just do herbs and, a few things. Um, I just think it's important, like you said, to have a community garden. Those are fun. It's actually really good to do that. I've done that before with people, with neighbors. It works really well. We all
Nice.
share kind of, and I kind of bounce between vegetarianism and veganism,
Hmm.
and once in a while, I've done the other. But I uh, my neighbors have chickens, and I help take care of the chickens sometimes, and so I get some eggs and whatnot. And it's just better. It's just healthier.
It's way healthier. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is. And yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I do. I personally don't have the space to go. I live in an apartment complex, but there are a lot of community gardens in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I live in the San Pedro neighborhood in LA, where that's just sort of like a big thing here, which I embrace. Like I'm thrilled
Mhm.
about it, and you know, I give people my compost. So I do it, and,
Mhm.
and and I see a couple things like near me. They're not like formal community gardens,
So
like some of
you
them
give
are.
people your garbage. That's cool.
Well,
I'm kidding. I'm
compost.
joking. I'm
Well,
joking.
I was about to mention that, like, I see people that, like, it looks like they're setting up a community garden, but I don't know them, and I feel kind of weird being like, "Hey, if you ever need compost, I got you." Because in a way, that is like saying, "Hey,
Yeah,
do you want my apple cores and coffee grinds? I put
right.
them in my freezer, and I can deliver them right to you." But,
Exactly.
but compost is important.
Funny.
I know there's a bit of a it does kind of seem a bit silly in a way, but it is but yeah,
It's awesome.
I feel awkward offering strangers my compost for that reason. When
I
you're
don't feel awkward offering my strangers my horse manure because I have a horse, Charm, and
Mhm.
he loves, I mean, to donate to people's gardens. So
Oh yeah,
my horse does, yeah.
he's like, "I
So
got you. I can
yeah.
do this."
But seriously, compost though, for composting, chicken is supposed to be chicken waste, and horse manure are, chicken manure, horse manure. Those are some of the best that make the richest vegetables because, they're of course vegetarian, and the kind of vitamins and minerals that come through the soil. It's really good for the soil, and it's good, for the food. So on a serious note, yeah.
Well, one of my buddies who gets a lot of my compost,
Mhm.
he grows pot, and so it's really special for me whenever I indulge in his products because I'm just like, I'm kind of stoned, and I'm also just like an apple that I ate helped make this. Like
There
that
you
that's
have it.
I'm not a
It's a
gardener.
cycle. It's a circle of life.
Yeah, right. It's like the closest I get to being one with the earth. I'm not a camper. I'm not a gardener. I'm not any of those things,
And you live
admittedly.
in Los Angeles.
And I live
Yeah.
in Los Angeles. So,
Yeah.
like, this is the closest I can get where it's just like, yeah, man,
Right.
the compost I gave my buddy helped get this
Mhm.
amazing plant. This
So
wonderful, wonderful plant. So let's get to it. I want to just open this up to you. What's your take on Biden's first year? How'd he do?
you want my take?
Of course I do.
Yeah, it's what it's gonna be. Well, okay, let's put aside the fact that of what happened to me in 1993 and that
Yes.
he used all his resources to silence me and obliterate my life like a with a wrecking ball. Let's put that aside. And just look what he's doing for the country. And I don't want to sound like I told you so, but I was tweeting out, shouting into the void. Look, I worked for this man. I know he won't keep one single promise. I know he's lying. I mean, it's like what Rose McGowan said with some of the people that she was around with in Hollywood, how she heard them when they had their mics off. Same thing. I was in the room with Ted Kaufman and some of these other people that are behind the scenes, from Bristol Myers Squibb, from, those companies, from, different powerful Democrats. They had no intention of ever passing that legislation. And that's my opinion. I think this is all like they call it a rotating villain, but really it's just a lie sandwich that they handed to the American people to get elected and to get in office for power and money. And they've all been enriched, Nancy Pelosi, by millions of dollars,
Mhm.
as we know. And then she just went on national television and justified it, saying, "Hey, it's a free market. We get to
Right.
invest in it." And yeah.
Yeah.
So my he said there is one thing he did say. He said nothing will fundamentally change, and it sure hasn't.
And he promised he wouldn't ban fracking. He's kept that one too.
Right.
So he's kept those promises.
Yeah.
Um,
The really evil ones. Yeah.
I mean,
It's
what
draconian. Yeah.
oh, absolutely. Well, and like, what is it saying when the supposed alternative to your right wing option, the Democrats are supposed to be your quote left option? That's the lie we're fed. When they're channeling Ayn Rand, like that's a parody of a parody. Well, it's a free market. We can just invest and do whatever we want, and we can manipulate
Mhm.
things however we want. That's just the way it goes. We're capitalists. This isn't the Republicans saying that.
No,
This
this
is
is
the
the people, and this is supposed to be public service. Okay. When I went into public service, when I was venturing into this whole thing, it had a very different you know, conversation about it. Maybe it was still as corrupt, it just wasn't as revealed. But I mean, we're having so many of our legislators become multimillionaires in office and then right out. We have to look at the corruption. There is corruption there, it's embedded. And, you know, going back to Joe Biden's performance, it's not only disappointing, but it's dangerous because they're pretending to be one thing. It's again that wolf in sheep's clothing I've talked about. They're pretending they're going to do all these things and then they don't. So people are duped into it. At least with the Republicans, you know what you get, right? They just put it right out there. But with Democrats, it's this cloak and dagger, smoke
yeah.
and mirrors. You never know. Like but but they kind of ease people in. But it's pretty much the same party. So again, we're just back to who's running this country. Well, it's a handful of oligarchs,
Yeah.
multinational corporations.
Well,
That's
and
and
it's
that are
why
feeding the industrial war complex. And now we're amping up for war, and you can hear the rhetoric. Trump didn't do that. I have to say he didn't. I mean, he did bomb Yemen. That's still going on, but he didn't do this kind of rhetoric building towards attention of a world war towards China and Russia. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, Trump, I mean, Trump definitely dropped a lot of bombs,
Mhm.
absolutely. But Trump, whenever Trump did that, he was praised.
Right.
And whenever he, kind of backed away from that stuff, he was shamed, which there are 1,000,005 reasons to despise Donald Trump. That
Yes.
wasn't one of them, but that was the one people harped on. They would actually attack him from the right, so to speak, when it came to
Right.
that. And
Yeah.
even Joe Biden, I mean, even Joe Biden, when he was ridiculed for getting troops out of Afghanistan.
Well, it wasn't so much ending Afghanistan. I think all of us wanted an end to that
Right, right,
endless war.
right.
It was the way it was done. And then, of course, in the aftermath or during it, you saw the civilian deaths. And now all of a sudden the New York Times is becoming WikiLeaks like the other day, and they put out how many civilian deaths. How many people lost their freedom trying to get that information forward? Julian Assange, Daniel Hale, Mercy. Edward Snowden is stuck, living in a country, and he can't come back to the US without possible, consequences legally. So you have these people that were trying to sound the alarms about these war crimes and the
Right.
and the war crimes done by drones. And now it's being shown to be true. And I don't get it. And so just like I don't get why Joe Biden's administration doesn't drop the Julian Assange case. What are they doing?
Oh,
I mean, we're just watching a public execution slowly.
we are
It's
watching,
ridiculous.
absolutely. And you look at, when you really dive into this case, which, I talk about it on this show, I know you talk about it,
Mhm.
and there's a handful of people that will not let this story go away, and thank goodness for all of them.
Yeah.
But it
And
is
encourage people to watch Katie Halper's show. She had an amazing show, a lineup of guests that talked about in depth the Julian Assange case. So if you don't really understand it, that's the reel to watch. Go subscribe to her and watch it, because that was powerful. That was
Yeah, well,
powerful.
and I think people are finally starting, and I'm talking like general people are finally
Mhm.
starting to come around
Right.
on this, because they're realizing what's actually going on. And when you look
Mhm.
at what's really going on in this case, calling it absurd is, there's not a word in the freaking English language for how
Mhm.
ridiculous this is. Like, the
Mhm.
charges against the guy are absurd beyond comprehension. Like the whole espionage act, that was an act that was written in the context of a freaking world war. A world war. We're not in a world
In
war anymore.
1917, World War One.
1917. So
Right.
the only way they're going to use it now is if they're going after whistleblowers. Because if you look at it, it's very vague, and it basically says, well, you can't do anything that could harm the military interests of the United States. Well, what does that mean when we're not in a world war? Obviously, it had some meaning when they were worried about Nazi spies in World War II. We're not in a world war right now. So what
Right.
does it mean? They're only going to use it against whistleblowers. It has no bearing on today's society. It shouldn't be a thing anymore. They're
Well,
using it.
that's exactly what I talked about with Maria Butina when she came
Mhm.
here. I don't agree with her politics. I'm obviously pro gun control. I'm not into hunting. I'm, whatever. And she, seemed to be kind of in the circles of Republicans. But I agree with her position about how ridiculous, how absurd, how dangerous, it was that the Espionage Act was used the way it was against her. She was not a spy. She didn't give any secrets to Russia. She was simply moving, in political circles, and then kind of got thrown under the bus. She ended up doing 18 months in prison and 4 of those months in solitary confinement. And what would she actually do? She didn't register as a foreign agent. So
Well, that's
a
another thing
bureaucratic
that,
thing caused that. So she describes on the podcast, which is heart-wrenching, what the day-to-day is like at 4 months in solitary confinement. And by the way, she's in the same prison that they're going to send Julian Assange, or one just like it. And she was in the federal penitentiary in Virginia. Um, they never gave a reason really for the 4 months of solitary confinement, but that meant that she was not allowed to interact with anyone. She was allowed to go out of her cell for 2 hours in the middle of the night to do everything she needed to do. She said for months she didn't see daylight. Can you imagine?
Mm.
She said, she discusses on the podcast how she got through that. But this is our country. This is what we're doing to people. And she made the point that most of the other prisoners were Black and brown. And they were just being lost. She said she met one prisoner, she said couldn't have been 18, seemed like she was 16, that was
Oh, jeez.
put in solitary.
Well, and
Finally,
a
when
lot of
she was
people don't
allowed out.
realize
So
how brutal solitary confinement itself is.
it's a form of torture.
Yes, it most certainly is, and, like, when you
Yeah.
really break down what that is, like, yeah, that is a form of torture.
And
I mean, there were a
that's
lot
what
of
Julian Assange's face. I
oh,
mean,
yeah, and
that's
then
what he
there's a lot
faces.
of people
How
who
can you
think
deal with that?
Julian Assange was just sitting in a nice apartment,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, that's not
In
what was going
Belmarsh.
on, and and you bring up the foreign agent thing. I mean, the whole FARA thing is another ridiculous, dated thing that has no bearing on today's society. And they used it to attack bureaus here in the US, which is ridiculously nationalistic and
Mhm.
disgusting, quite frankly. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting that it was only two types of bureaus they went after. They didn't say anything to BBC America or anything like
Mhm.
that, but they did go after Russian outlets and Chinese outlets and
Right.
nobody else. I'm sure that was just random.
Yeah, I mean, the xenophobia in our country is really rampant, and I think, the younger generation is not gonna be as patient. As soon the Steele dossier has fallen apart, Rachel Maddow is gonna be bye-bye, with her spouting anti-Russia, Russophobia stuff every night. That's ending. I mean,
Do
and
you think
what's
it's ending?
interesting to me is that the New York Times and the Washington Post didn't fully retract all their articles that were just spewed at the American public over and over and over again about the Steele dossier and all of that, that ended up being false reporting. And it's how can Americans trust the American media if they're doing that?
Because when you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth.
Ah,
You know? I mean, I know you were asking rhetorically, but
yeah.
that's the answer though. And I
Mhm,
think it's I wish I shared your optimism that it was going away. I don't think it is. I mean they just keep moving the goalposts. They keep they'll
mhm,
keep mentioning as an aside, like to kind of make you think it's true because it's just like if
mhm.
they ever copped up to anything, this isn't just egg on your face. This is an entire freaking omelet.
Right.
This is an entire Hillary Clinton brunch worth of freaking omelets on your goddamn face. They're never gonna fess up or own up to anything. They're just gonna keep moving the goalposts. And Rachel
Yeah.
Maddow has gotten very, very rich. And over on the other side, I mean, our entire cable news industry is just catnip, whether you'd like or don't like the person in the White House. That's
Well, and
all it
it's
is.
more than that though, Ron, right? Like MSNBC is now being known as Intelligence Central. I mean, that's where the
Yeah,
CIA sends their agents and like, okay, learn how to talk on the television. You're going to
they're
be going
proud of it.
gig, and especially the foreign correspondents. So they've got their gigs. Abu Dhabi, okay, I'll go there, says the little anchor, and then she's basically just working for the intelligence agencies, trying to do what she's trying to do. So yeah, I mean, it's like I've been watching that, and they keep on bringing CIA experts and former CIA and former and current analysts. That's not how news used to be. We did. I feel like we're just in one long commercial for the NSA.
Yeah. They're PR agencies.
Yeah,
they're not news agencies. Calling them news is
right.
not fair. And by the way, in courts of law, they're not even called news, you know? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it is just so apparent. I mean, they are just PR agencies for the war machine, and it's all of them. It's
Mhm.
MSNBC, it's CNN, it's Fox News. They just scratch different itches for what they think people want to hear, and it's all theater. It's all just gross theater, and it's gotten in the past 10 or so years, it has gotten even freaking worse. I mean, you look at
Yeah.
something like NPR, which has always been nice, polite Republicans, but it's gotten way worse in the past 10 years or so. I mean, you hear Amazon commercials now and Koch brother influence now. I mean,
Oh,
it's
and every
just
story they do, they'll say, "Oh, and by the way, we're funded by Amazon. Hi, Jeff Bezos. We said hi." Yeah, I know. If they're just, and they don't call themselves, United States funded media, but they should. Um, so, you know, now that we've solved all these world problems,
yeah, I know, right? We
I think
really
the, I think the
I
answer though
think that
is
was
just
a yeah.
is to support, independent journalists and independent thinkers, and shows like yours, shows like Katie Halper, shows, that really question and push back a bit. And I really feel like if we can keep from getting deplatformed and find other ways to express ourselves. Like I think there's Rockin now and there's other, besides YouTube, because some of us gets, deplatformed. Like for instance, my Twitter gets suppressed. Can you imagine? Every few days. And whenever I'll tweet something, if it's my cat, and I'll get 500 likes. But if I tweet my podcast from RT, people don't see it. I don't know why that is. Can you imagine, Ron? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of reasons why that is, and
Yeah.
some are, yeah. I mean, they're all pretty
Mhm.
obvious. I mean, some of it is like Twitter and Facebook. One of the things they do is they do always suppress links to some extent because they don't want
Right.
you to leave the site. But then, of
Yes.
course, there's also the
There's that.
content, and let's be honest, part of it is everybody loves cats too.
That's true. And my cat's very photogenic. I do have a photogenic cat, so
That's
I do have
awesome.
to say that.
Who you told me
So
off
is
mic is,
Lucy's a close second. She's got a cool
oh, thank you. She appreciates. What's your cat's name?
Ben. I have
Ben.
yes, Ben. I don't know why my daughter named him. And then I have a little bear. Little bear is quite photogenic. He's quite popular too. They've been kind of rivaling each other. They're looking to get under 5 lines, so to get their, union cards. So I'll let you know for your next venture.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I feel like Ben and Lucy, that sounds like a sitcom.
It does. It does. It's the next show. So speaking of shows, you're working on a movie, right?
Yeah, I am.
Last time I talked to you, you're working on a movie. So tell me what's going on with the movie.
All right, I'll tell you what's going on
I'm
with my
switching the
movie.
tables.
Yeah, right? It's just like, I'm gonna interview you now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Alright, cool." I'll
Well, I am
allow it.
curious. I want to hear more about the movie.
Yeah, so the movie, I don't know if you got to check out the trailer or not yet, but
Mhm.
it's about,
Did.
it's poking fun. I mean, obviously, it's about Wall Street,
Yeah.
and it's loosely based on the incident that happened earlier, well, still this year in 2021 with GameStop and Reddit and the whole thing where they purchased the stock and the price
That
went
was
up and it screwed over a bunch of hedgers.
that
So
was
it
wild.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a wild thing that happened. So it's loosely based on that. It is a fictionalized story, but it is loosely based on that, where basically there's two brothers. One brother is a big Wall Street hotshot. The other brother is a struggling writer in Los Angeles. It takes place in Los
Hmm.
Angeles. Yeah, right. I play the writer brother, and they butt heads, and so the writer brother cooks up this scheme to screw over his Wall Street brother when he gets word that his Wall Street brother is trying to short sell a video game stock.
Okay.
So he gets word that that's happening. So he goes online and he tries to cook up this scheme to kind of prove to his brother, "Hey, I know your stupid little game." And
Mhm.
so it goes from there. But yeah, that's the premise of the movie. It's it is an anti-capitalist movie, like pretty much everything I write. That's a common theme I've
That's
noticed.
okay.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just,
I'm
yeah,
with you.
I've just noticed that, like, everything I write, and I'm like, yeah, and it's kind of, it's capitalism. It's against that. It's that's the other big theme.
So
But
Nancy Pelosi's not doing a guest appearance, I take it? No.
no, I mean,
No.
unless she would audition for one of the roles and we find her to be a good fit. I
There you have it. Well, they all have the
unless we
same
cast
agent,
her.
CAA, Creative Artist Agency.
Oh, geez. Now that's another can of worms. That's that's
Ah,
another
yeah.
that's another fun can of worms going on in the world. Yeah, they do. Well, it's Biden and Buttigieg is
Mhm.
another, he's on CAA,
Yeah.
which yeah, oh yeah, that's a whole, oh boy. But yeah,
So,
that's my movie.
well, that I'm excited to see it come to its fruition. So, we'll keep looking out for ways to support you and
Oh, I
share
appreciate
the
it.
link and all that. Yeah, that'd be cool. It'd be great if you could get it into some festivals too, as well when it's finished. So,
That's the goal. I mean, my goal
mhm,
is like when it's finished is to, take it to festivals all over the world and just kind of
mhm,
go the indie film route with it and see what happens. And yeah, I'll so let me ask you this. This is a question.
mhm,
You responded to something similar to this on Twitter. not too long ago, and I kind of want to ask more from just a theme standpoint.
Sure.
Throughout the election, one of the things that was common was that there were a lot of people who obviously just smeared you and did not believe you and
Right.
said just horrible things about you.
Yeah.
Um, then there were other people who would say things like, "I believe you, but my other option is Trump, and I feel like I gotta vote for Joe Biden, so I'm gonna vote for Joe Biden, but I do believe
Right.
you."
Right.
Um, was one of those easier to hear than the other for you?
No, actually,
Really? Okay.
no, they were both equally shitty. Yeah, they're just both equally just really disappointing. I
Mhm.
understood it intellectually, but emotionally it was really hard. So I'm still
Sure.
quite kind of not over that. And I think that people now see voting for evil is the same as voting for evil, lesser or no. There is no lesser. They're just equal or more. Um, so I think that there's a shift a little bit. I can't predict what's going to happen in 2024. Can you? But in 2022, that's coming right up. I think that the Democrats are probably in trouble. That's
Yeah.
my guess. Um, I think the nail in the coffin was the student loan promise
Mhm.
because they rode so hard on that they were going to do the forgiveness of debt, and then of course they lowered it down to like $10,000, and tried to minimize the impact, and then it's just gone. Like there's no relief, and
Well, and
then
it's
there's
worse than
legal.
gone, he's bringing back the payments.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and even under Trump, people had relief for COVID and got a little money. I would just remind people when we come up on 2022, what did the Democrats do for you? What did the Republicans do for you? Nada, nothing. So
Well,
move on.
and this is
Look at
part of
third
the reason.
parties.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, well, this is part of the reason why our Overton window is so freaking screwed in this country because, and this is how we got Trump in the first place.
Mhm.
Barack Obama campaigned on hope and change and hope and change. He did nothing. He had full control for the first 2 years, did absolutely nothing, went on to do nothing, admitted at the end of it he's just a Reagan Republican this entire time.
Well, no, he drowned civilians. He was the first
Oh
president
yeah,
to
he did
mention
plenty of that. Yeah,
killing
no,
them.
no. He did plenty of bad things, but as
Yeah.
far as all those good promises, he didn't do any of that. And so you have a lot of just general people who are trying to keep their heads above water, and it's not easy
Mhm,
in this country by design.
mhm.
They look at Obama and they're just thinking, man, I took a chance on Bush. My life didn't get any better. I took a chance on this Obama guy for 8 years. My life didn't get any better. Obama's supposed to be this progressive lefty guy. So I
Right.
guess progressive lefty ideas just suck. I'm going to take a chance on Trump. Oh, my life didn't get any better again. Okay, I'm going to take a chance on Biden. Biden now doing nothing. So in 2024, you're going to have a lot of people. Well, I guess progressive ideas and lefty ideas just suck. Supposedly, Joe Biden is a big no. Joe Biden. I wish he was this radical socialist they say he is. I'm
Oh,
pretty
I know,
sure the
that's
only Marx
ridiculous.
he's even heard of is Groucho.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an absolute joke. Joe Biden
Yeah,
would be considered far right in any other
he
similar
is.
democratic experiment. I mean, this is amazing. When you have the alternative to the supposed alternative to the right-wing party, and during a pandemic, the words universal healthcare aren't even uttered.
I know.
I mean, go over to England for
I
crying out
know.
loud. England, which by the way, England is considered, England's not in the EU anymore because of Brexit, but in
Mhm.
comparison to like other some nearby countries in the EU, England's considered the like, whoa, yeah, they're kind of far right over in England. And the Boris Johnson government, the Tory government, they don't have a testing crisis like we do. They're actually looking out for people. I mean, it's amazing. They'd be considered like they're to the left of anything we have in the United States.
Well, when England gives people dental care and the US doesn't, you got your answer right there, right? Because and I mean, look at Canada. I mean, Canada, the same thing. Well, even in and they criticize the hell out of Russia, but look at Russia gives parental leave. They give
They have healthcare.
medical assistance for everyone.
Yeah.
And okay, some of it is privatized because people argue that back. But you know what? When you go in there, it's $20 for or less for to get something done in American, in the American dollar comparison. So I mean, you can't compare. And then even in Latin America and some of those countries, you can actually take care of preventative health for a nominal fee. Whereas here, I mean, it's not only just the health crisis. We can't even do the preventative stuff that
Right.
will help us stay healthy.
Because we have a
And
system based
yeah,
on profit.
yeah,
We have a system based on profit. There's not profit in, like, in preventative care for somebody starting at when they're born. If we had a real healthcare system where the goal was public health, yeah, we
right.
would have all that stuff, or at least a much better system for it. I mean, it's just
Well, I mean,
and
we just passed, it sailed through the 778 billion dollars. That's almost $1 trillion for military.
yep,
And yet they couldn't get anything passed for childcare, for giving student loans, medical assistance, education
$15 an
service.
hour,
Nothing.
free
Nothing.
community call. They gutted all of it, and we're
All of it.
not even getting the crumbs of the crumbs of the crumbs of the crumbs of the crumbs
I
that
mean,
was
don't
left of the
people get that? I don't understand. I have
I
a friend who's now an expat who lives in a different country, in South America, and she says she's told fellow citizens there, don't go to America. It's a struggle. She lives much better there than she does here because she's a writer. So I don't know, that maybe that's not all writers struggle, but like most of us are, it's hit or miss, right? But she just says her quality of life is so much better. She can get the things she needs to get. She can get medical care, and she tells other people, don't think that going to America is going to make your life better, because not anymore. And I, you know, Edward Snowden said a very poignant thing recently. He said he criticized. I don't want to misquote it, but basically the gist of it was that he's criticizing his country because he loves it, not because he hates it. And I'm the same way. It's not because I want to love to live here. I want to love to live here, but I don't right now. I don't like it here right now. It's hard. It's too hard unless you're part of the 1%.
yeah. I feel you. I mean, that's the thing. Like, and I get, and I'm sure I can only imagine what you get. So I'm not in any means trying to compare the two at all, because there
Yeah.
is absolutely no comparison. But I get told all the time, like, love it or leave it. Why don't you just leave? Well, just go, just go. And
Yeah.
first of all, I have a couple responses. One of them is, you don't know how hard that actually is to do. Because if
It
it was
is.
that easy, a lot more people would do it. First of all.
Believe
Second
me,
of
they
all,
would.
yeah, and second of all, it's just like, you know what? I love my freaking neighborhood. I
Mhm.
love it. I love it here. And my family is here and my friends are here. And so fuck off. Why should I leave? You leave.
Exactly. We're trying to make it better.
Yeah.
I mean, I might explore different parts of the world because I do love to
Sure.
travel, but right now with COVID, that's impossible. It's an almost impossibility for anyone right now to really, unless you have a lot of money, to really explore other countries or to move somewhere, because it's just so many restrictions, and it's just difficult.
What's your bucket list? What's like
So,
once things get a little easier, what's your bucket list? Where do you want to go first?
oh, there's so many. Well, I've been to places in the world before, so it's places I haven't been. Like I really haven't explored Southeast Asia. I haven't explored. I'd love to see, go to see Australia, New Zealand. And now with everything that's gone on there, I would just love to see New Zealand, especially. Um,
Mm.
the prime minister cracks me up. Some of the things she says or does. But it's a beautiful country. New Zealand is,
I've
and
been to Australia, but not New Zealand. And
yeah.
Australia is lovely. So
Mhm.
I really want to get to next time I'm over there, I want to get to New Zealand as well.
Did you go to Fiji or Bali or any of those places?
Mm-mm.
No.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I also want to go up to see more of Scandinavia. Like, I'd love to see Denmark, Russia. I'd
Me
love to
too.
see Poland, Czechoslovakia. I'd just like to explore. And right now there's so much tension and ugliness between countries. I'm just hoping that over the next year we can find some stability with our the leaders find stability with the way the nations are talking about each other, because gearing up for war is not the answer. We don't need that. Our citizens won't. No one will win. No one.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we are living in an age where, I mean, it really is, we're always at war with Eurasia. I mean,
Yeah.
that really is, and it's so systematically in place where it's
Mhm.
one side demonizes China, the other side, and sides in quotes, demonizes Russia.
Yeah.
And that's who they blame for the declining quality of life that we have here. In reality, we are, one of the richest nations on earth, and people have a terrible of quality of life, and it's because of an economy based on war, and it's
Mhm.
because of a complete corporate coup for a government that is the system, and they don't want you to wake up to that. They don't want you to know that.
Mhm.
They
I mean,
want
and
you
that's
to.
why so many shows like yours will get, demonetized, or, like other shows will be deplatformed or even be censored in some other way. So, going back to the Julian Assange thing, that's the ultimate censorship. If you jail whistleblowers, if you basically kill them or jail them, then you're not going to have any voices of dissent, or people are going to be so frightened they can't dissent. And then that's when we all lose. I mean, we've all lost a lot of freedom, and I think over the last couple of years we've all lost a lot of freedom, our civil liberties. And it had this Julian Assange case is a pin, is a keystone of that. So let's hope that, and I don't know how much I can help, but I'm just, with all the pressure that's even coming now from the mainstream media. There's even, I think it was a Fox and CNN said that the Biden administration should drop the Assange case, which shocked me. So if they, maybe with that kind of pressure, finally they'll drop the case. I don't know.
I sincerely hope so. And to your point, when you're talking about whistleblowers and just connecting this to everything we're talking about, the one thing I said when it comes to Assange, the most important thing right now is that this man is free and home with his family because they literally are trying to kill him.
Yeah,
But when that day comes, the whole work is not over because then the task becomes, okay, we need to make sure something like this never happens again
right.
to anybody. And that's no easy task, but it's got to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, you've got to keep, doing what you're doing with your show and bringing forth issues that people don't, they kind of like read about it, but they're in the survival mode. And I think that's the thing, is when citizens are in just surviving to eat,
Right.
surviving to get fuel for their car, paying $5 a gallon, almost like in LA, right? Um,
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
you're not thinking about geopolitical politics, because you're just trying to like feed your family, and
Mhm.
you're trying to stay healthy, you're trying to stay alive. And if they keep you in that kind of mode and that kind of spin, it's easy to just, you know.
And it's easy for them to get what they want. I
Mhm.
mean, why don't we have and we are seeing some strikes in this country, which is
Yeah,
amazing, and I've been
the
covering all
Kellogg
those.
strike. Mhm,
Oh, absolutely. I've been covering, Kellogg's, John Deere, like you name it.
mhm.
And then I think that some of the union votes they're going to have to redo over at Amazon. Starbucks is unionizing.
Right,
We are seeing some victories, which is huge. I think it needs to be a mass scale general strike, but that's
right,
just so hard to orchestrate here because everybody is just being grinded into submission where they're just a one paycheck away from going under.
right.
So yeah, it's like they can't like it's not like people don't want better or the people like it's
Mhm.
that you know, they're just being grinded into submission where it's like I can't wrap my head around the idea of striking because I got kids to feed and I'm always one paycheck away and I don't have health care and this and that. And it's by design. This is the way they
It
want it
is.
because when you are an empire, you just need an obedient, poor class. That's what you need. You need a
Mhm.
poor class who is just going to give you the labor you need, and they're just commodities. I mean, you even see people talking now, and when they talk about what's going on with the pandemic, it's not about it's not about like how can we help people. It's about like this is bad for business. They're literally
Right,
saying it.
right.
They're
Meanwhile,
literally just
they
saying
made
that.
laws so that the producers of, the vaccines cannot be sued for any side effects. I mean, come on. I mean, and this is the challenge when people are questioning. They're not questioning whether or not to get a vaccine. They're questioning like, hey, what's in there? Like it's basically curiosity, and also we're supposed to put it in our bodies. So what is the compound in it? What can we do to find out and critically understand it? And then how can people trust? And I think Crystal Ball made this point, that it's and I don't want to get this wrong because maybe it wasn't her, maybe it was Rising, but basically from the very drug companies that are making such huge profits off of it. It's hard to just blindly trust that, right?
Well, and they're also denying it to tons of other places. They're denying these vaccines to other countries. They're not
Yeah,
lifting the
that's
patents. I mean, it's just a complete and utter. I mean,
it's a
it's
mess. And
ridiculous.
again, this is going to capitalism, and when you privatize, you cannot it just it's not going to work out in the marketplace because you can't account for greed. There's no formula that will account for greed, and that's the problem with trying to let it work out in the marketplace. You're having to rely on people's goodwill. Well, in a corporation, they don't have a goodwill. They have a
Right.
bottom line.
They have a bottom line. I mean, and that's how it is. And that's,
Mhm.
this entire time, it has been the altar of capitalism first, and people just a total afterthought. That is the American way. That's the way the system's set up. That's the way it's always been. And we're seeing how fragile the whole thing is. How it's
Yeah,
just like the little, like it's like the before 2020. I mean, this is nothing new, but before 2020, I mean, we were just a rubber band being
right.
stretched, and it's just it broke. And it just takes
Yeah,
the smallest thing to break it, and you see, and we are going through this as one world. It's not like any one place is utopia that's gotten everything figured
no,
out,
no,
and all the places we've mentioned, they all have their problems too.
they all
But
do.
man, we are seeing how gross our society really is, even more so than, I mean, I could say even more so than I myself realize. And I, I'd like to think I've been, I have my ear on the ground as to how messed up
Yeah.
the American system is. But it's like, I mean, just the whole thing. It's like we have a public health crisis. There's less people in social services. There's less resources available to people. We have a
Mhm,
testing crisis. They're denying vaccines to other parts of the world. I mean, the list goes on and on. Fauci himself, always a capitalist first, public health an afterthought at best. And he's not working alone. He's part of a huge system. This is
mhm.
the entire system, and it's always been that way. And now we're seeing it crumble. We are seeing it crumble.
Yeah, it's not things don't work well, bureaucratic things especially. In fact, as we were speaking, my daughter had texted me because she's been ill last couple days. She's fully vaccinated, boosted, everything, but she has COVID symptoms, and so she's been trying to get her COVID test.
She
She's been
can't get
waiting for
one.
2.5
Oh my
hours just trying to
god.
get her test, and she has to buy one, she has to pay, and it's like, "What the fuck are we doing?" And, like, that really snotty, um press secretary Psaki, the way she was so,
She was
dismissive about
so
protests.
but because of that, I mean, I guess
Uh,
this is like a little bit of sort of good news. Because of that, they're actually finally doing something. They are gonna have tests available,
one,
for
one
distribution.
test in a few
Right.
months.
No, no, no. I mean, it's still way too little, way too late. But it's like,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for her, I mean, it's
If it
remarkable
wasn't
that
for her, like,
if it
her, like,
wasn't for
being
her
such an
arrogance,
asshole
if what she got
on
up
live
there.
television.
So for anyone who might not know what we're talking about, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, which by the way shouldn't even be a job. They're
No.
the president. They're the most powerful person in the world. We can hear from them. Okay, they're
Yeah.
not busy. We can freaking hear from them. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, somebody asked about, like, why are tests so expensive here? In other countries, they're free or they're $1. They're so expensive here. Other people in
Yeah.
other countries, they got boxes of them at their house.
I
We
know.
don't have it available here.
Right.
And they're just saying, "Why is that?" And Jen Psaki was sarcastically like, "Oh, what should we do? Send one to every American?" Yes, Jen.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
That's what other
That's
countries are
right. If
doing.
you were really serious about helping people through the pandemic, that would be one way and preventing it. It's they're so they're
It's
blatant
unreal.
now,
I
right?
mean, it's unreal. And now finally they're doing something. I mean, before, for the longest time, you couldn't even
Mhm.
mention the testing crisis. No one was even talking about it. No one
Right.
is, hey, if you get your hands on one, it's like $25 here. In other places, free or a freaking dollar. And they got
Right.
them everywhere. We don't have them here. I mean, they're finally starting to do something about that.
I know, and there's so much politics around, and it shouldn't be. Like, for instance, that Russian tennis player, she can't play in the Australian because she got a Sputnik vaccine. Well, So did Oliver Stone. So did a lot of people. He publicly talked about getting his vaccine there. I mean, it works, so use it. Like, who cares? Like, if it's a valid, why are we playing politics with these vaccines? Why? Because
Mhm.
profits, right?
Because
Because
money.
certain
Yeah.
companies want those profits
Yeah.
and they
I mean
don't
I
want
mean,
other countries
it's
to develop it.
well, and why are we denying it to other parts of the world
Yeah.
that desperately need it? I mean, they need these shots. They're being denied them. I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the
it's
solution is just
tragic.
and then when we try to talk about it, you get the warning. Like, you'll probably get one on YouTube. If we even mention it, like, if we even just like question one single part of it, it gets, flagged on social media. And we're not talking about being anti-vax. We're talking about accessibility to healthcare. We're talking about, why isn't it easier? Why isn't it
Yeah,
better?
why isn't it easier? I mean, I'm fully vaxxed plus the booster.
Yeah,
You know,
me
I
too.
mean, yeah,
Yeah,
like I'm yeah, I mean, this
yeah.
has nothing this is
No.
about I mean, I
And as
once
as
got
as vilified as they're doing some of the Republicans, like, even Trump came out and said he was fully vaxxed and boosted. So,
oh, yeah,
I mean, what are
didn't
we
like
talking
some of
about?
his people boo him or whatever? They,
Yeah.
like, booed him for
I
that.
think, well, some of the people booed.
So
But that's the
ridiculous.
whole thing. They
Well,
set up,
you up until recently, you weren't allowed to talk about the testing crisis, or
right?
you got demonized, like, all kinds of ways, and it's like, "Well, what are you talking about? Like, testing is important, like, you think that's not part of
Mhm.
everything? You think we shouldn't have testing? Like,
Right,
what's wrong with you?"
right.
Now, all of a sudden, because of Jen Psaki's arrogance, you're allowed to talk about it now, but before, you weren't even allowed to bring that up, and it's like, what the hell is
We should
wrong with us
actually,
as a
maybe this is like
society?
reverse psychology, Ron. Maybe we should like send a list of questions to some of those White House press corps and say, ask her this, see how arrogant
Right.
she comes back.
Someone brought that up where they were just like, get her to say something like, "What should we do?
Maybe
Just
we
give
can get
healthcare?"
dental care and
Yeah,
vision.
right. "What are we supposed to do? Just give healthcare to every American?" "Yes, Jen. Yes, that's what are we supposed to
What do
do?
you
Just
want
make
from us? Do
college
you want
free?"
Americans to have teeth? Like, what's wrong with you?
"What are we supposed to do? Just let people go to college?" "Yes. Yes,
Like,
that's what we're supposed to do." "What?
yeah.
Everyone's just supposed to get a living wage? Is that where's it?" "Yes, Jen. That's what's supposed to fricking happen." "What do you want us to do? Do something about climate change as opposed to nothing?" "Yes." "What do you
I
just want no
know.
war?" "Yes. You're really catching on."
Right. Yeah. Maybe we can just keep the momentum going. We can get some good
Yes.
stuff out of this.
Let's
If
try
she
to
if she
set
keeps dragging the poll numbers down lower, before 2022. But once 2022 happens, forget it. Then, like, if the Democrats get back in, they're going to be like, "What? We can't hear you.
I
Not
don't
till
think they will.
2024."
Yeah, I mean, I think 2022 it's going to be a bloodbath for Democrats. And again, this is just the
Well
same
deserved.
playbook. It's the same playbook. You know, they actually I mean Republicans they're just on the base neo-fascist. Republicans are literally a neo-fascist party. They make no qualms about it. That's just
Right.
definitionally what they are. They are neo-fascist. Democrats, some of them I would argue are neo-fascist too, but
No, they're
overall
neo-McCarthyists. Yeah.
they're neo-McCarthyists and they're
Mhm.
neoliberals. Like they are
Mhm.
literally a neoliberal party. And when you say that, there's some people out there they think you're saying like new liberal. Like no.
Mhm.
Neoliberal meaning like they're just like we're not going to be as blunt as the neo-fascists, but we're just going to say, well, the market, laissez-faire, capitalism, it'll sort it out. So you're not going to do anything to prevent neo-fascism from happening. So when those are your only two choices, neoliberalism leads to neo-fascism 100% of the time and vice
Mhm.
versa. And they like it that way because that's what their donor class wants and it keeps their apple cart going. So
Right.
basically, there is a ping pong game going on. And on one side is the neoliberals, on one side is the neo fascism. We're the ball getting batted around. And here's the other kicker even though we're getting batted around, they don't want that volley to end. They want that volley to keep freaking going. They wanted to get, they're not even trying. They're not competing against each other. They pretend it's an actual freaking game.
Exactly. Did you see the White House message? I posted it on my feed and I said, I wonder how other countries give holiday greetings to their citizens. But basically it implied that, the winter was going to be severe and everyone was going to die. It
Yeah,
was
I
it was
saw
really
that.
dark. It was a
It
dark
was
message. Did you see it?
it was gross. I mean,
Yeah.
it was gross. I mean,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
was
it was shocking, like, just the verbiage of it, I can't, I don't have it in front of me, I wish we could post it up because it was just
yeah.
I thought it was a joke. I actually thought it was from The Onion. I didn't think it was real.
I didn't think it
And
was
then I
real either.
verified. I was like, this is real. This
Yeah.
is what they think of citizens of the United States.
Yeah.
Like you're
I
gonna
mean,
die.
well, what was one of his most famous speeches? "I have no empathy." I
Yeah,
mean, that was on the
no
campaign trail,
empathy.
Joe Biden, "I have no empathy. I have no empathy." And
I
it's
can directly attest to that,
I
because of personally experiencing him as a
yeah.
staffer, I can tell you the man has no empathy. And we all knew it. And he smiles when he's angry. He's a creepy dude, and he was
He's a
never
creep.
very popular. And that's what always shocked me when people would say, he's such a great guy. I remember when people just thought he was a gadfly. They just didn't think anything good about him at all. It's so amazing how the machine just wrapped around him and tried to mold him. And
Why do you
even
think
though it
that was?
tried, it couldn't do it.
Why do you think that was? Why did the machine really pick him in your words?
Because he is manipulate. You can manipulate him, and it was the people around him and behind him, and they wanted to defeat Trump, and they thought this was the machine to do it. That the person in front of the machine, I mean the puppet, and he is easily manipulated. So he's got people around him with an agenda, and they're getting their agenda through. The rest of us be damned. Because they're definitely not doing representative government, which doesn't always work anyway, as we know. But, you know, the fact that this whole group of progressives, which is 40% of the base of the Democratic Party, couldn't do anything to move legislation through to benefit people, but yet Joe Manchin can tank a
Yeah.
major bill. One person? No, that's bullshit. It was a plan all along, and there's pictures of them and him and Joe Manchin together. I think that there was an agenda of what they were going to do. They were going to pretend like they were going to do all this stuff and then not do it
Yeah.
and go back to their yachts.
Literally, in Joe Manchin's
Mhm.
case, I mean, he
Yeah.
and Joe Manchin is despicable beyond comprehension.
Oh,
But
he's an
yeah,
easy person to dislike.
well, that's the thing. People are incapable of having 2 thoughts in their head at the same time. Where it's just like, yes, Joe Manchin is despicable beyond comprehension, but you are naive if you think he's working alone. If you
Right.
think that he's not also, just sort of their easy kind of scapegoat. I mean, he is, bowing to the
Mhm.
donors. He is, and he's happy to play that villain because he's been allowed to for so long.
He's a coal miner. He's a coal baron.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
he
you can't get more evil than that, right? Like,
right. Somebody
it's
tweeted this, and I think it just brilliantly summed up everything about how our establishment politics work. They're like,
mhm.
look, the Democrats and the DNC did more to stop Bernie than they did to even persuade Joe Manchin.
Exactly.
That says it all.
That's
That
right
says
there.
it all.
That's the agenda. That tells you everything you need to know. I mean, and Joe Biden was misogynistic and racist when I knew him in 1993. And that's what came forward besides my experience. There was issues about racism. And you've seen all the public videos too. And it's amazing how they were able to whitewash that. No pun intended. And make it palatable for the American citizens and palatable to Black voters, to convince them that yes, he's for you when he's not, and he's made that clear again and again and again. And then Harris just had her go around with Charlemagne the God. Did you see that?
I'm not familiar with that. No.
Oh, she just got interviewed and basically got called out about Joe Manchin. And
Kamala
anyway,
Harris
you have
did.
to see the clip, but
Okay.
she made it a word salad. She was a mess. It was a bad interview, and I don't even know why they keep letting her out to
Well,
interviews.
I think she was the original, like, anointed one from the DNC. Like, I
Yeah,
think they really what they were like, "Kamala, she's gonna be the one. People are gonna
she's gonna
accept
be
her.
the
She's
one.
gonna do what we want."
Mhm.
And then the public was just like, "No." And
No.
then they're like, "Okay, how about this Buttigieg guy?" And the public was
Yeah.
like, "No." And they were like, "Liz
Um,
Warren." And we were like, "No." And they were
mm,
like, "Liz Warren again." And we are like, "Yeah, still no. That Bernie guy, that's our guy. That's been our
mhm.
guy for a
Yeah,
while now. And,
yeah,
that's what we want." And they were
yeah,
like, "Okay, screw you. You're getting Joe Biden, and guess what?
yeah.
He's picking the cop. Screw you."
Yeah. So here we go.
Here we go.
So away we go into 2022. I'm gonna just try to avoid troll farms. I'll be tiptoeing around Twitter. because they're going to come after me hard. But I will keep raising my voice, and I
What
hope
else you
you.
got coming up? What in closing here, like what do you got coming up in the new year?
In the new year, I'm going to continue with the podcast, which starts again January 14th. So the survival, the politics of survival, and you can find that anywhere on Apple, on Spotify, and some of the other all those platforms. Buzzsprout kind of gives you a list. Buzzsprout is good. And I'm going to work on that and some writing that I've been trying to get done and that I
Nice.
procrastinated to 2022. Oh, and I forgot to give you the update on Sally Albright. Remember, I last time I was on, I talked about the lawsuit against her.
Oh, okay.
So we have
Well,
moved forward. She
refresh.
finally got served.
Okay, so refresh everyone's memory, because I last time you were on, we had like a
Sally
bunch of tech
Albright
issues
is
and
a
stuff. So
political operative who went after a lot of different people, but for
okay,
whatever reason, whoever paid her, she went after me, very focused in a very focused, diligent way, trashing me and whatever. But that's not the focus of the lawsuit. The lawsuit is because she took my book, Left Out When the Truth Doesn't Fit In, and she read it online, encouraged people not to buy it, and said she would send it to them for free, and did. On emails, and posted all of this on social media, different platforms. So I filed a copyright violation because that's copyright violation.
Hmm.
And then for months, we couldn't serve Sally Albright, even though she's this well-known political operative. She managed to avoid service. She's been served and she's
Communities.
about to go to discovery. So I can find out why she's doing this or who paid her, and discovery will show a lot of things.
Interesting. Well,
Mhm.
wish you all the best with
Yeah.
that. And what kind of? I want to focus more on some of the creative stuff. What kind of writing are you working on? Do you want to share anything, or is that sort of like I'm not talking about it yet?
No, no, no. I did. I was working on a novel called The Last Snow Tiger, which is what prompted the whole Russian agent thing. And it's not even about that. This Last Snow Tiger is really about a friendship between two little girls that grow up into women, and it's about a tragedy that happens, and then their connection throughout their life, and it's more about friendship and what connects us. And I flipped the narrative, because a lot of times in America media, you see Russia being the bad guy, and in this, Russia's not the bad guy; they're the good guys. So I kind of flip the narrative, and we make it more about what connects us, not what divides us, and the beauty of all of that. So it's a novel. It's been in, I had to start over again because of the whole mess that happened with coming forward.
Mm.
I'm also very active with trying to help, sexual assault survivors, and, other people that are lesser known, lift their stories up when it's a powerful person, so they don't get squashed. And yeah, so I'm just trying to focus in those realms, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Is
Yeah.
there anything you want to mention before we sign off here? Where can people go to learn more? Where can people go to get the book you have out now? Where can people go to get more Tara Reade centric materials?
Well, I write for RT once in a while, an op-ed, so you can check out that. I'm at Twitter at Reade Alexandra, or on Instagram, Tara Reade Author, and TaraReadeAuthor.com is where you can get the book. Try to avoid Amazon right now, just because we want to support workers, and I don't like what happened recently during the tornadoes to the Amazon workers.
Oh God, that was that
Yeah,
was and they pull stuff like that all the time. I mean,
yeah,
people in the Midwest were saying, "Oh yeah, they make people work through tornado warnings all the time. This is nothing
I
new.
know.
It's just this time something hit really hard and people got killed."
Well, if you want to know the really bad part of capitalism, that's a prime example. So support, like you were saying earlier, support your local efforts, your local stores, or in our case, independent authors, independent media, things like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
and you can
and you
find
know
me
what? I wanna
independent.
mention something real quick, because I feel
Mhm.
like this is an interesting snapshot
Okay.
into how society works, okay? Capitalism, when you're really talking about what capitalism really is,
Hmm.
capitalism is not a creative person wrote a book and somebody would like to have that book, so they purchase it, and from that creative person, and then they have a
Right.
book. That's not those are exchanges for goods that's existed. That's not what capitalism is. What
Right.
capitalism is is people dying in a freaking warehouse because they had to go to work during a tornado. That's
Yep.
what capitalism is. Anyway,
Yep.
continue. I thought that was
Absolutely.
an interesting moment that happened organically here
No,
for a
yeah,
second.
you're absolutely right, and that's a teachable moment, and, but, I mean, yeah, it was horrendous, and I don't even know there's not really been much on the major news, of what the fallout
No,
of that's gonna be, any consequences for Amazon regarding that. But
I'd
back
like to think there
to
would be, but
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, so you can find me on there, and then Independent News Network is something that I'm part of, and that's really great. Indie news, and it's good for us to help each other and raise each other's platforms and to discuss ideas. And sometimes we're not always going to agree on everything, and that's okay. And I
yeah, a
think
lot of people
there's been
don't
yeah,
realize that right now.
yeah,
A lot of people don't realize it's just like, yeah, we're not all
mhm,
gonna agree on everything, and
no,
that's okay.
yeah,
And we should try to work through that instead of like writing everybody off. Because guess what? At the
mhm.
end of the day, if you're a lefty in the US, you're still politically part of by far the smallest group. We are
Yes,
still there's more of us than we realized, and there's a
but
lot of I think a lot of people are lefties and they don't know it yet.
right,
Because like they're still kind of stuck in the gunk. Like when you see how many people are ready for Medicare for all, we have more lefties in this country. It's just a lot of people they don't realize it yet. And
exactly,
we should spend our
exactly.
time trying to win those people over instead of tearing each other down. I'm not saying we
Right,
can't disagree. I'm not saying like we can't say our truth and disagree. Of course, there's nothing wrong
mhm,
with that. But
right.
when you take it to a toxic place, and you know what I mean, we all
I
know
know what
what
you're
this
saying.
I mean, we all know what this means. When you
Mhm,
take it to that toxic place of like, I am tearing this person apart. I agree with them on 90 to 95% of things, but I'd rather destroy them over this 5% of things as
yeah,
opposed to trying to get the other 90% of the freaking country on our side.
mhm,
That's just not all that productive to me. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I have my flaws like everybody else, but
yeah.
I really try not to play in the mud that way. I try really hard not to do that.
And I'm glad, and, and everyone should be glad to play in the mud with you and Lucy.
Yeah,
So,
that's the good kind of playing in the mud. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good kind of play. So yeah, so the holidays, for the holidays that I know everyone's really struggled. This has been a tough year for everyone, and children especially, their childhoods have been impacted by how we've had to live our lives, and young people, and so I really want to go forward and do things that create beauty and help and fun, something that's amusing as well sometimes, or powerful or impactful. And so that's kind of what I want to do in the new year. Just keep doing that work moving forward. Um, and I know you do that work already, Ron. So that's
Thanks.
cool.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, check it out. Check out Tara's stuff,
Mhm.
and yeah, I look forward to checking out that novel.
Yes, the
Well,
last.
we'll kinda we'll poke each other, like, we'll be like, "How's that novel?" You'll be like, "How's that
How's
movie?"
that
And I'll be like,
movie?
how's that movie?"
Have you
That'll
gone
be
into editing yet? Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
right. Oh,
There you go.
that's a long time away.
I know. And I procrastinated my audiobook, and I'm doing that this week,
Oh,
actually. I'm working
cool.
on that.
You
So
just are you narrating it yourself?
I am. Yeah.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, congrats on that too, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it'll get out there, but people have been bugging me for the audiobook. They're like, and I think that's kind of the trend. People are busy and they wanna listen rather
yeah.
than read sometimes. So there you
Well,
have it.
it's really I mean, I spent many years as a road comic, and I know you are familiar with how that world works, and,
Yes.
yeah, audiobooks are quite the savior in that world. Audiobooks, I was always very, very thankful for them,
Yeah.
and I really grow to appreciate a good narration too. A bad narration can kill an audiobook for you.
I will practice. I'll
Oh,
let
you're
you
gonna crush it.
I'll
Yeah, no, you're gonna
I'll
be
let you
great.
screen it first because, who
What?
knows? Like, we all think we can do
No,
it, but it does take a special kind of talent to do an
it
audiobook. So
does. No, it
you're
it
right.
does. You're gonna do great, but yeah, you're right. It does take a special kinda, a person, and some people, like, they're just not good narrators, and it just kills the book.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. I know what you're saying. I'll even skip a book if it's that bad.
Yeah, you
But
gotta just
thank
turn
you
it
for
off.
having me on again, and
Of
hopefully in
course.
the new year, we've both made progress on our creative projects and find each other on our podcasts. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, and thank you so much for all you do, and I know it's a crazy world out there, but thank you for telling your truth, and,
mhm.
happy holidays.
Happy holiday.
Alright, Tara. Cheers. Tara Reade, everybody. Huh? There you go. Last guest of 2021, and it was really cool to talk to her. Great way to close out the year, guest wise. Our last headline show will be on Thursday. Then that'll be the last show for the year, and I'll be making announcements of 2022. Of course, we'll be back in January, but I do take a little break at the end of the year. Indie News Network, thank you for the super chat contribution. Love our sister Tara and the great Ron. Get INN. Thank you so much, Indie News Network, and check them out. Thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. Guys, I will make a few quick announcements here before we sign off. First of all, tour dates, I got them. April, get your tickets now. Don't wait. Where am I going? I'm going to Pittsburgh, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, doing some stuff up in Canada, Burlington, Vermont, Portland, Maine, Boston, Massachusetts, New York City. Do not wait. Get your tickets. RonPlacone.com. That tour kicks off in April, and I can't wait to see all of you. Also, patreon.com/Rob Placode. Last call for theme songs. If you want, or for holiday theme songs. If you want a theme song before the holiday, patreon.com/Rob Placone. Give what you can level and request it now. I'm going to be pumping out. I've pumped out a lot the past few days. I still got a lot more. So if you want one for the holidays, if you want one in general and you don't need it until like whenever, then by all means, take your time. But if you're like, I want a theme song for the holidays and I've been putting it off, put it off no longer. Last call, y'all. Patreon.com/Rob Placone. If you want a theme song before the holiday, sign up today, message me, and get your order in there. Again, patreon.com/Rob Placone. For Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of perks on my Patreon. You get exclusive streams, you get videos, and I'll make you a theme song. And that's all for a Give What You Can level. Whatever you're comfortable giving is awesome. Even $1 a month goes a long way. And my movie, as Tara mentioned, my movie, we are moving along with Left It Wall. We're going to be starting production soon. If you want to help move that along and help make this movie a reality, we are crowdfunding. You can go to GoFundMe.com, type in Left at Wall. That's GoFundMe.com, Left at Wall. Check out the trailer. If you're able to make a contribution, that's awesome. We're going to be dropping a lot of videos there. We give everyone a thank you on Get Your News On with Ron. And if you give $100 or more, we'll even mention your name in the credits. GoFundMe.com, type in Left It Wall. You can also see that trailer on my YouTube channel, my Rockford channel, and it is my pinned tweet. Check it out. If you can make a contribution and you're able to, that's great. If you're not able to, that's totally fine. Check out the trailer anyway. Let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to making that movie. And there's a couple other scripted projects in the works that I can't wait to have more info on, and I can't wait to share with all of you guys. I will see you Thursday for the last Get Your News On with Ron of the year. And until then, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow. And I say peace, love, and a general strike. See y'all Thursday.